Your day collapses when one client deliverable, 3 admin errands, and a half-finished proposal all look equally urgent on the same list. The visible consequence is not just stress, it is a bad operating decision, because the list cannot tell you what deserves capacity and what merely wants attention. The mechanism here is the task load ledger, a structured task management operating system for solo operators. It turns a mixed pile of reminders into 4 decisions: what has consequence, what has capacity, what has a scheduled first move, and what gets kept for learning. The diagnostic question is simple: what will break if this waits until the next review? Used correctly, the output is not a prettier list. It is a smaller active lane, a realistic day plan, and a record that makes the next similar decision less guesswork. Task overwhelm persists because most lists mix 3 different things: commitments, possibilities, and reminders. A solo operator sees them in one column and treats the pile as a moral obligation. The common fix is to add more categories or rewrite the list at the start of each morning, but that only refreshes the confusion. The real loss is decision quality. You spend fresh attention comparing tasks that were never qualified for the same day. Reversible decisions, like choosing the order of 2 errands, sit beside high-consequence decisions, like delaying a client handoff or ignoring a tax document request. The symptom is a long list. The cause is an intake system that lets unpriced work occupy execution space before it proves it belongs there. TASK stands for triage, allocate, schedule, and keep. But the useful part is the load ledger that holds those decisions in one place. Triage asks what consequence makes the task real. Allocate asks what kind of capacity it requires: deep focus, light admin, communication, or movement. Schedule asks where the first visible action will happen, not where the whole wish belongs. Keep asks what the result taught you about future estimates, interruptions, and task shape. The operating rule is strict by design. A task may enter the active lane only when it has a consequence marker, a matching energy slot, and a next action. If those marks are missing after a short clarification pass, the task stays in holding. The system applies to solo work with many small commitments. It does not solve unclear strategy, missing authority, or a workload that is structurally too large. Triage is not ranking what feels important. It is asking which tasks have a consequence that changes a promise, a deadline, a relationship, or a necessary life condition. The recurring question is, what will break if this waits until the next review? If the answer is concrete, the task earns a consequence marker. If the answer is only discomfort, curiosity, or guilt, it goes to the holding lane or a later review. This rule works because it separates urgency from noise before the day is built. It fails when you use it to avoid emotionally difficult work that does have a real consequence. The decision it changes is entry, not order. Before triage, every reminder competes. After triage, only consequence-bearing work can compete for active capacity. Allocate turns consequence into capacity. A task card receives 1 energy marker before it receives a time slot. Deep work needs quiet and continuity. Communication needs response windows. Admin needs low-friction batching. Movement needs location and materials. The trade-off is real. The system may protect a deep work block by postponing 5 easy tasks that would feel satisfying to clear. That is not inefficiency. It is capacity selection. The rule fails when you pretend all hours are interchangeable or schedule demanding work into the part of the day where you normally handle fragments. A quick midpoint self-audit catches this. Look at the active lane and ask whether each card has a consequence, an energy match, a first physical action, and room to spill. Any missing mark sends the card back to holding before it damages the schedule. Consider a freelance designer managing a landing page revision, a new proposal, overdue invoices, and feedback from 2 clients. The old list says all 4 are pending. so the designer starts with invoices because they are quick. In the load ledger, the landing page revision gets a consequence marker because the client review happens tomorrow. It receives a deep focus marker and a next action. Compare the requested changes against the current wireframe. The proposal enters holding because no delivery date has been promised yet. Invoices become a light admin batch after lunch. The decision is to protect the first 90 minutes for the revision and accept that the inbox will look messier until midday. The output is inspectable. One revised wireframe exported, invoice batch sent, proposal clarified for tomorrow. The takeaway is that the ledger did not make more time. It stopped low-friction work from stealing the highest fit block. Schedule is where many operators overcommit because a calendar box looks cleaner than real work feels. The task rule is to schedule the first action plus a spill buffer, not the fantasy of perfect completion. A spill buffer is a deliberately empty margin next to work that has uncertainty, client feedback, creative judgment, technical setup, or unfamiliar steps. This works because it makes uncertainty visible before it becomes evening debt. It fails when every task receives a buffer, because then the ledger becomes protective but not useful. Use it on high consequence or unclear work, not on routine actions you have done many times. The decision it changes is promised timing. If a task needs deep work plus likely spill, you do not promise the output at the edge of the block. You promise after the buffer or reduce the scope. A solo operations consultant plans a week with a workshop outline, 3 client calls, a data cleanup task, and a proposal review. On Monday, the consultant gives the workshop outline a deep focus marker and schedules 2 hours with a spill buffer. A client emergency breaks the block after 40 minutes. The first attempt fails, but the ledger captures the spill reason: external interruption during a high-consequence build task. The consultant does not simply move the task to the next open space. The learning loop changes the next decision. The outline is rescheduled into an early block before calls, and the next client promise includes a later review window. The visible result is a finished outline with a shorter proposal review deferred to holding. The trade-off is uncomfortable. A lower consequence proposal loses momentum. The takeaway is that failed plans become useful only when the reason changes the next similar schedule. The most common misuse is turning the ledger into a decorated backlog. If every idea gets a card and every card stays visible, the artifact becomes another source of pressure. The response is to limit the active lane, not beautify the pile. A second failure is false triage, where every task receives a consequence marker because everything feels connected. When that happens, write the consequence as an observable event, not a feeling. A third failure is ignoring the keep step. Without spill notes, the same scheduling mistake repeats under a cleaner layout. The boundary matters. The system cannot rescue commitments that exceed real capacity. When the active lane stays overloaded after honest triage, the operating decision is renegotiation, deletion, or delayed acceptance, not better arrangement. Return to the overloaded day from the start. 1 deliverable, 3 errands, a proposal, and a list that cannot choose. The task load ledger resolves that tension by changing what is allowed to become active. First ask, what will break if this waits until the next review? Second, assign the energy type before assigning the hour. Third, schedule the first visible action with a buffer only where uncertainty justifies it. Fourth, record 1 spill reason so the next similar task is estimated or protected differently. The observable transformation is a narrow active lane with qualified work, not a heroic attempt to clear everything. Some tasks will wait, and that is the trade-off that makes the system honest. The next time a mixed list appears, do not ask how to finish it all. Ask which tasks have earned capacity, then build the day from those answers.